Well, in the Asian culture, if you go to a restaurant and eat with friends, you never split the bill. Someone will offer to pay, and you are meant to fight that person for the bill. I will pay. No, I will pay. No, I will pay. No, I will pay. In the Australian culture, when you go to a restaurant and eat with friends, you always split the bill. And then if someone offers to pay, you let them pay. Now, I'm an Asian brought up in Australia, so I can choose which culture I want to be in. So when I go with my Asian friends and someone offers to pay, that's when I choose to be Australian, and I let them pay. See, it's always interesting trying to navigate between two cultures. And as Christians, we've been asked to do the same thing, because we've been asked to be in the Christian culture, the kingdom of God, but we also have a secular culture. We have a public secular workspace. So our topic in this conference is disruption. And our question tonight is, how can I navigate? How can I survive? How can I thrive and flourish in my public secular workspace? Because disruption has occurred, and so how can we disrupt the disruption? And the major disruption that's happened is this. Our Western storyline has changed. I love going to the Sydney Cricket Ground and watching the cricket, but the most fun thing to do at the Sydney Cricket Ground is the Mexican wave. The Mexican wave happens, and it just goes round and round and round the ground. People wave and cheer, and things are thrown into the air. And then the wave hits the member stand, and they do nothing. And so then you boo the members, boo, boo, boo. And you get that chant going where they say members are bankers or something like that. I'm like, how about that? You have to be a banker to be a member. Who would have thought? But then one day, a friend of mine who was a member invited me to watch the cricket in the member stand, and then the wave started. And it's going slowly around the ground, and it came to us and the members. And there's silence. We did nothing. And it's like there's this panic. What do we do? We're in the members' stand. And they all booed us. And the chant went up. I thought, wow, 50,000 people are booing me. I have become that guy. And that's what it feels like to be a Christian today. We have become that guy. And we don't know what to do. We are the guys in the storyline. Because it's the new Western storyline. Once upon a time, yes, we believed in God, but we also believed in witches, fairy godmothers, and unicorns. But then, boom, the Enlightenment happened, and it freed us to think for ourselves. And so we reject traditional forms of authority. We reject what our parents tell us. We reject what governments tell us. And we reject what the church tells us. And instead, it's all about being this. I have to be brave enough to have the courage to be me, to be true to myself, to keep it real, and don't listen to what other people tell me to be, but I have to be me because I can be no other, and I have to be brave, I have to be real, I have to be authentic. And so when a Christian comes along and tries to tell about Jesus, they are threatening to take away our freedoms, and they are threatening to return us back to the dark ages where we believed in witches, fairy godmothers, and unicorns. And so when we try to tell our friends about Jesus, or if we say we're a Christian, we are on the dark side. We are that guy. So we need to learn new ways of telling our story to show the freedom, the joy there is in knowing Jesus. Now, if you're a Caucasian Australian, the first thing you notice when you go to University of Australia is, there are Asians everywhere. There are so many Asians. How and when did this happen? And then if you go to a Christian group on a university campus, whoa, you would be the only white person in the room. And then, how did this happen? Why are all the Asians Christians now? What happened? And it's because in the Asian storyline, Jesus sets you free. Jesus sets you free from the fear, darkness, and superstitions of your parents. Jesus sets you free of the status anxiety that's imposed upon you by your culture. Jesus sets you free from the obsession with success in the Asian storyline. It is liberating to find Jesus if you're an Asian. And if you look at your Asian friends who aren't Christians yet, life is by and large worse for them. They're still trapped in the fear, the status anxiety, and the drive for success. So the Christian storyline represents freedom to an Asian. And so we need to learn ways of telling this freedom story to our Australian friends, because Christianity does not represent freedom in the Australian storyline. In fact, it threatens to take away your freedom. And we've been coached in maybe correct but not helpful ways of telling our friends about Jesus. So we've been coached in ways which are biblical but maybe not the most helpful way. Things like, oh, I used to live for myself, but now I submit to Jesus. Think what that sounds like to an Aussie. Now you're really going to take my freedoms away. How is this going to be fun? How is this any joy? So maybe we can learn new ways of using freedom as our main motif. Things like, I tried to be free, but whatever I lived for owned me. We all have to live for something, but whatever I live for owns me and is destroying me, and I am destroying it. I live for work. Work represents status, being somebody to me, but now my work is destroying me. Or I live for my family, but now I project my fears and insecurities upon them and make them to be the trophy family, and now I am destroying them. Whatever we live for owns us, destroys us, or we destroy it. But Jesus sets us free. He's a good God who gives us good gifts to enjoy. In the Bible, when people find Jesus, they find joy. Look for the word joy in the New Testament. Every time we find Jesus, there's joy. If I told you I've been married to my wife for 20 years and there's no joy, you should be worried. And somehow the Bible's the same. If we know Jesus, there should be joy. Just the other day, I caught an Uber ride in Melbourne. And so we got talking a lot about Jesus because she found out I was in ordained ministry. And part of what I do is I tell people about Jesus. And then she found out I was turning 51 next month. And she goes, whoa, how do you look so young? Is it all the clean living, no drinking, no smoking? And I said, heck no. I am a brewer. I love my beer. And she said, really? I said, whoa, have you not heard about Jesus? His first miracle was turning water into wine. And she went, I had never thought about that. And if you read the Bible, in the original, it actually says the reason they ran out of wine is the guests were drunk. They had drunk too much. And yet Jesus gives them more wine. He could never have had a responsible server alcohol license. He probably failed that exam. And he did that because it was a sign of his kingdom. The luxury, the joy, the excess, and the beauty in his kingdom. This is what life with Jesus will be like. And she was just blown away. We need to learn new ways of telling people about Jesus. He has come to set us free, not to take away our freedoms, but to give us real, true freedom. And there's a joy, there's a beauty in knowing Jesus. The next thing we need to learn is this. There are actually 3 spaces that we live in. See, traditionally we've been taught there's a private, public, sacred, secular space. Only 2 spaces. But not true, not true. There are actually 3 spaces that we live in. So the first space that we live in is this. The private space, or the private sphere. And then we have the freedom of assembly sphere. And then we have the public sphere. So in the private sphere, I'm allowed to believe and behave whatever I want in the privacy of my own home. In the freedom of assembly sphere, I am free to mix with people of same beliefs and behaviours. But in the public sphere, I have to mix with people of other faiths, traditions and beliefs. So in the private sphere, I might believe AFL is the best sport in the world. I'm allowed to believe that in the privacy of my own home. In the freedom of assembly sphere, I can mix with other people who believe AFL is the best sport, and we can exclude the rugby players and the soccer players. We have the freedom to do that. If they want to play soccer, go join a soccer team, but we're going to play AFL. But in the public sphere, we have to share the public sphere with the soccer players, the rugby players, and then the ping pong players, because they're the Asians who don't want to play contact sports, and the chess players as well. we have to mix with people with different faiths, traditions, and beliefs. I am an Asian, and 90% of Asians are lactose intolerant. And so in the privacy of my own home, I can insist on a lactose-free diet. I can have a freedom of assembly sphere where I say I'm going to create a space for Asian lactose intolerant people. This is a club, and only Asian lactose intolerant people are allowed. We're allowed to do that. If you're not Asian, you're excluded. If you want to drink milk, you're excluded. But in the public sphere, you're not allowed to do that. We have to mix with people of all races, all diets. So the gluten-free people can be here, the vegetarian people can be here, and the dairy eaters can be here. And it's the same with Christianity. So in the private sphere, I'm allowed to believe Jesus is Lord. I'm allowed to adopt the traditional beliefs that, and cultures and morals. But in the freedom of assembly sphere, I'm allowed to mix in a space where other people believe Jesus is Lord. If you don't want to believe that's fine, but you have to find your own club. But in the public sphere, we are meant to mix with people all faiths, traditions, and beliefs. And that's okay, because our example is Jesus. He gave us that model. So in the privacy of his own home, he believed he was Lord. And in the freedom of assembly, he had his followers, his disciples, and they believed he was Lord. But in the public sphere, he mixes with people of all faiths, traditions, and beliefs. He was always, according to the Bible, eating and drinking with tax collectors and sinners. And he did it so much, he was criticized for it. In the Bible, he was called a drunkard and a glutton because he was doing too much eating, too much drinking with those he didn't agree with. And so if that's what he was criticized for. So as Christians, if we're to be criticized for anything, it should be that we're doing too much mixing with those of different faiths, cultures, traditions, and beliefs, because that's what Jesus was criticized for. It is okay. So, but how do we navigate all the morals then? Well, we have to understand there's one more thing about the public sphere. So in the public sphere then, we can make two mistakes. As Christians, we can make the mistake that thinking, well, this should be Christianized. We should make this a Christian sphere. But no, it's a public sphere where people of all faiths, cultures, traditions, and beliefs can mix. And so it would be wrong to coerce people. And again, our example is Jesus. So remember when Peter pulled out his sword and cut off the guy's ear? Jesus said, Peter, put away your sword. And then he had to bend down, pick up the guy's ear, put it back on, and heal him. Meaning, guys, if you're going to be my followers, you don't do it with a sword. You don't coerce people. Instead, it's done with the word, through persuasion. Jesus might be king, but we persuade people in that position. We do not coerce people in the public sphere. But then the opposite is mistake can be made by people, say, secularists, by saying this needs to be a neutral sphere. And that's just naive at best, dishonest at worst, because that's like saying you cannot be Asian Australian in the public sphere. This is my tradition. This is my core beliefs. This is who I am. You cannot ask me to leave behind my culture, faith, tradition, and beliefs as if I can be neutral. No, I am Asian Australian. I am who I am. And to say it's neutral is to not realize everyone has a worldview. Everyone has a tradition, culture, and belief. So when I lived in America for 5 years, it's an amazing being an Australian living in America, because they always say to you, oh, I love your accent. And then they say, do I have an accent? And you think, oh, dude, they think they have no accent, that they are neutral. But worse, I had a guy in California say, the reason they make movies from California is because there is no accent. So the whole world, when they watch a movie from Hollywood, hears no accent. It is neutral, normal English. So they think they have the neutral, normative accent, and everyone else is the weird people with the weird English. And it's the same when we say this should be a neutral sphere, as if there is a neutral, normative accent. There is no neutral, normative accent. We all bring our faiths, cultures, traditions, and beliefs into the public sphere. Peter Fitzsimons, what I love about him is he argues that the Australian national anthem should be, we are one, but we are many. Because that sums up what Australia is all about. We are one. one nation, one public sphere, united by the nation, but we are many, many cultures, many traditions, many beliefs, and that's what it means to be in the public sphere, celebrating the fact that there are many of us, different, and we are who we are, and we can be no different. See, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, they are who they are, and they did what they did because of their faith, culture, traditions, and beliefs. We cannot be neutral. We cannot leave them behind in the public sphere. So what do we do then in the public sphere? So here we need to understand there's a difference between single morals in the private sphere, single morals in the freedom of assembly sphere, but here we have social pluralism. So in the privacy of my own home, I can insist on single morals. Okay, it's going to be AFL, lactose-free, and Jesus is Lord. In the freedom of assembly sphere, okay, lactose-free, AFL, Jesus Lord, and we can exclude people of who have different diets, different beliefs, but here we mix with people with different diets, different traditions, and different beliefs. And again, the example is Jesus, and that's okay. And Jesus is always eating and drinking with tax collectors and sinners, and people are worried, you are compromising your morals. No, you are not, because here your morals are single, they're single there, but here we're mixing with people with different faiths, cultures, traditions, and beliefs, and that's okay. And if we're going to be criticised for anything, let this be what we're criticised for. But what happens here then in the public sphere if we disagree? And here Andrew and I are saying the same thing. We need to learn to hear, understand, and feel what the other person is saying. Now, guys, you married guys will remember this from your premarital counselling, won't you? Like, remember what they say when you have an argument with your wife, you just learn to hear, understand, and feel what the other person is saying. And so when my wife says, "You're not taking out the garbage," I just have to repeat her words back at her. Or from what I hear you saying, "I'm not taking out the garbage." And then I have to say, "Oh, I understand." And I just summarise her words in my own words to show I was showing some analytical higher thinking while she was talking. "Oh, I understand that means I'm not doing my part in the housework." And then here, you got to feel the emotion behind it. That must make you feel blank, and you got to guess an emotion. And it's always going to be anger. Oh, that must make you feel so angry. And my wife heard me telling all my guy friends about this, and she said, "Oh, if I ever catch you doing that to me." And I said, "Oh, from what I hear you saying." And this is what we need to learn to do in the public workspace. So take same-sex marriage. From what I hear you saying, this is all about human rights. I understand how human rights is very important for you, so that must make you feel very angry when Christians seem to disagree with you. Am I correct? So we need to learn to hear their side of the story, feel their emotions before we speak. And then how then do we engage then, especially if we don't agree on everything? And here I'm getting this from Andrew Cameron's Joined Up Life. We have a spectrum of ways we can engage. We can cooperate, we can subvert, we can whistle blow, or we can separate. So I work as a medical doctor, and when I work in a hospital, that means I can cooperate. You tell me to do this, I cooperate. Because you and I are on the same page. You want people to get better, I want people to get better. I will cooperate. Here you subvert. You do what they tell you to do, but you have different motives. I will do what you tell me to do, but your motives are different from mine. Your motives are to make money, balance budgets. My motive is to make people get better. Here you whistle blow. You sort of say, I would do what you tell me to do, but I don't agree with your ideology, and I'm going to call you out on that and tell people about it. So I would do what you tell me to do, but I don't like how you're cutting costs here, and our waiting lists are too long, so I'm going to tell the press about this. I'm going to whistle blow. And here you separate. You say, that's it. I can't work here anymore. I resign. I hand in my resignation. I will not work here as a doctor anymore. And you can see examples of all these in the Bible. So cooperate will be Jesus, Cooperate would be Joseph in Egypt. I will do what you tell me to do. Subvert will be Daniel. Early in the book of Daniel, it says, I will do what you tell me to do, but I will eat a different diet. You guys eat that diet, I'm going to eat my own diet. Whistleblow would be in Daniel when they told him, you can't pray to your God anymore. And he said, well, sorry, I cannot do that, and I'm going to call you out on that. And then separate would be the three friends in Babylon when they've been asked to bow down to the statue, and they say, sorry, we cannot do that. We separate. We will not be part of all this. And then you sort of think, well, how do I work out when and how to do these things? Well, here we need to learn wisdom. Wisdom. You know, the Bible has three categories of knowledge. There's salvation knowledge, how to be saved. There's providence knowledge, how to survive day by day. But there's another category that is completely underexplored in our tradition, and that's wisdom, the category of wisdom. And wisdom is summed up by those famous 2 verses in Proverbs, where one verse says, answer a fool according to their folly. And right next to it is a verse that says, don't answer a fool according to their folly. And you think, well, which one is it? Do I, don't I, do I, don't I? Well, you're going to need wisdom for that. What is most apt in this circumstance? You have to take circumstances into account. So, do I cooperate or do I not? Do I subvert or do I not? Do I whistleblow or do I not? Do I separate or do I not? We will need wisdom to know that. And it may be different according to different circumstances. We need to look for common ground. And in the Reformed tradition, in theology, we say that all goodness is God's goodness, all truth is God's truth, all beauty is God's beauty, meaning there's goodness, truth, and beauty in every non-Christian tradition. Because of general revelation, because of common grace, because everyone is in the image of God, every non-Christian culture, tradition, and belief will have some aspect of God's goodness, God's truth, and God's beauty in it. So look for common ground. That's what Paul does in Athens when he sees all these idols, and he could have come in blazing, this is wrong, you've broken the first 2 commandments of the Bible, so now you've broken all of them, you guys are guilty. Instead, he comes in and looks for common ground and says, wow, you guys have a lot of idols. How about that? You're very religious. You're trying to worship God. You're trying to appease the gods. Let me show you how. So we need to look for common ground. You guys want same-sex marriage? Wow! Because you believe in human rights, equality, justice, and universal unconditional love. Wow! We too, and we can get that from the Bible. You want the safe schools thing because you're against bullying? We too are against bullying. You want Purple Shirt Day because you believe in everyone feeling safe in the public sphere? We too, we believe in embracing all beliefs and making them feel safe in a public space. So because of God's general revelation and common grace, Timothy Keller says, no non-Christian position is as bad as we think it is. And then the flip side, because of universal human depravity, no Christian position is as good as we think it is. So we've all been tainted by sin as well in our Christian position. We all find ways of suppressing God's truth in our Christian position. So we need to have the humility to say, we are broken, we have got things wrong, and to say sorry for the hurts we have caused as Christians. And then we need to learn to love, pray, and bless. Because Jesus said, love your enemies. He said anyone can love those who agree with them. Now, true love is to love your enemies, to love those who disagree with you, and to pray for them. The Bible says pray for your enemies, pray for those who want to hurt you, and bless those who persecute you. Love, pray, and bless. I'll give you a flip side example. I have a friend called Rohan. Rohan became a Christian, and so he got baptized at his church. And Rohan's uncle, who is fiercely anti-Christian, who's an atheist, and who is gay, turned up to Rohan's baptism to help Rohan celebrate. And at that moment, No one is saying, oh, what is going on with Rohan's uncle? He's compromising his atheism here. He's sold out. He's turned up to his nephew's Christian baptism. No, we see it for what it is. He's being respectful, and he's honouring Rohan because Rohan is his nephew. And as Christians, we need to learn from imaginative and creative ways to bless those we don't agree with and bless those from positions we don't agree with either. And if I had to sum up what I'm saying here on how to be a Christian in a public secular workspace, it's this. It's hospitality. If there was one New Testament word to sum up everything I've just said until now, it's hospitality. I never noticed prams until I had children, and they are everywhere. Prams are everywhere. I just had a blind spot. I didn't notice them, but they are everywhere. And we have a blind spot to hospitality. It is everywhere in the New Testament. I just did a search last night. It's everywhere in the New Testament. The idea is everywhere. Jesus is always at a banquet. He's always at a feast. He's always at a party. There's always hospitality. There's always food. There's always drink involved. And then he searched for the word as well as the idea. It appears in the book of Romans, in the book of Acts, in the letters to Timothy and to Titus. It's in the letter to the Hebrews. It's in the letters by Peter, and it's in the letters by John. Hospitality. That's how we love, pray, and bless those we don't agree with. Jesus was always eating and drinking with those he didn't agree with. So if we're going to be criticized for anything as a Christian, it should be this, that we're doing too much eating, too much drinking with those we don't agree with. And now in our 21st century Western world, hospitality is a hard thing to do, but that means we just have to be creative and look for creative ways to be hospitable. So as a doctor, you be the one who put yourself on the cake roster. Turn up with a cake for a change. Don't let the nurses be the only one be on the cake roster. Put yourself on the cake roster. If you're in an office, do the coffee run. Say, hey, who wants a coffee? I will do the coffee run. And when they try to give you money, say, no, on me. Coffee's on me. And when people try to work at their desk and work through lunch, you say, hey, everyone, let's go for lunch. Lunch is on me. No, they still want to work. That's all right. I'll take your order. I'll do the lunch run. And then you give them their sandwich and they say, how much? On me. It's on me. Look for creative ways to do hospitality in our workplace. Hang around afterwards. Say, hey, let's hang out. Let's go for drinks. Let's go for dinner. Don't, let's not just rush home. Let's hang out for a while. Let's unwind. And if you can, invite people back to your home as well, if possible. Creative ways to be hospitable. I think that's how we can disrupt in the 21st century in the public secular workspace. And again, our example is Jesus. And if we're going to be criticized for anything, it should be this, that we're doing too much eating, too much drinking with those we don't agree with.